What if the person who loves you the most is the very person choosing to stay away? And what if their silence isn't proof they stopped caring, but proof that what they feel has become too powerful to escape? Today you'll discover the hidden psychological reasons why genuine love sometimes creates distance instead of closeness, why silence often hides the loudest emotions, and what this unexpected separation may truly mean for both of you. If this message is helping you see relationships through a deeper psychological lens, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Every week we explore the hidden forces shaping human behavior, emotional patterns, and personal transformation. And stay until the end, because the final insight explains why the greatest act of love is sometimes the one that looks exactly like walking away. The greatest misunderstanding about love is believing that it always moves toward closeness. We are taught that if someone truly loves us, they will call, stay, chase, reassure, and remain constantly present. Yet human psychology is rarely that simple. There are moments when genuine affection produces the opposite reaction. Instead of reaching out, a person becomes quiet. Instead of moving closer, they create distance. This contradiction feels almost impossible to accept because we naturally associate absence with rejection. But beneath the surface, another reality may be unfolding. Sometimes the heart moves forward while the unconscious mind desperately pulls backward. The person is not running from you as much as they are running from the overwhelming emotions your presence awakens inside them. Their distance becomes less about a lack of love and more about an inability to manage the intensity of what they feel. This hidden paradox begins when love touches parts of the personality that have remained protected for years. Many people believe they fear rejection, but often they fear genuine connection even more. Real intimacy demands openness. It asks a person to lower emotional defenses that may have taken decades to build. Childhood disappointments, broken trust, abandoned dreams, painful relationships, and silent insecurities all remain buried beneath the surface until someone arrives who truly matters. Suddenly, emotions they thought were long forgotten begin to rise again. Instead of feeling only happiness, they experience confusion, vulnerability, anxiety, and emotional exposure. The stronger the connection becomes, the stronger the instinct to escape can become. Their mind quietly convinces them that distance is safer than risking another emotional wound. This is why silence should never be interpreted too quickly. Silence can carry many meanings, and not all of them point toward indifference. Sometimes, silence is the sound of an inner battle that words cannot explain. Imagine someone standing between two powerful forces. One side urges them to move closer because their heart recognizes something deeply meaningful. The other side reminds them of every previous disappointment, every betrayal, and every fear of losing themselves in another person. Neither side easily wins. Outwardly, it appears as withdrawal. Inwardly, it feels like chaos. They may think about you every day while convincing themselves that staying away is somehow the wiser choice. The contradiction becomes exhausting because both love and fear continue pulling in opposite directions. For the person waiting, this distance often creates endless questions. Was it something I said? Did they lose interest? Was everything they showed me only temporary? The mind naturally searches for simple explanations because uncertainty is emotionally painful. Yet many answers remain hidden beneath layers of unconscious conflict. People do not always understand their own behavior, let alone explain it clearly to someone else. They may genuinely believe they need space without fully realizing why. Their actions appear inconsistent because their conscious decisions are being influenced by deeper emotional patterns they have never examined. What looks like rejection may actually be emotional self-protection operating outside their awareness. This understanding does not mean every distant person is secretly in love, nor does it suggest waiting endlessly for someone who refuses to communicate. Instead, it invites a deeper perspective on human behavior. Love is not measured only by physical presence, constant messages, or perfect consistency. Human beings are complex, carrying invisible histories that shape every emotional decision they make. Sometimes the deepest feelings awaken the greatest fears, creating a paradox where love itself becomes the reason someone steps away. Recognizing this truth does not erase the pain of distance, but it transforms the meaning behind it. Instead of seeing absence as automatic proof that love never existed, you begin to understand that the human heart is capable of loving deeply while simultaneously struggling to face the vulnerability that genuine love demands. Here's keynote number 2, expanded into 5 detailed paragraphs in the same reflective psychological style. Love has a remarkable ability to reveal what a person has spent years trying to hide. Most people believe they know themselves well, yet much of the human mind operates beneath conscious awareness. Old disappointments, childhood experiences, betrayals, feelings of abandonment, and quiet insecurities often remain buried where they no longer demand attention. A person can go through life believing these wounds have healed simply because they have learned to function around them. Then someone enters their life whose presence feels unusually meaningful. Suddenly, emotions that seemed long forgotten begin to awaken. The connection feels deeper than expected, and with that depth comes an uncomfortable truth. Real love does not merely offer happiness. It exposes everything within us that has never been fully resolved. This is why emotional vulnerability is one of the greatest hidden fears. To genuinely love another person means allowing them to see parts of yourself that you normally protect from the world. It means accepting that they could disappoint you, misunderstand you, leave you, or reject the version of yourself that feels most authentic. For someone carrying unresolved emotional wounds, this possibility feels overwhelming. Their conscious mind may tell them they want love, yet another part of their psyche quietly whispers that love is dangerous because it has been associated with pain before. As these opposing voices grow louder, emotional closeness begins to feel less like comfort and more like standing at the edge of an unknown cliff. Instead of recognizing this fear directly, many people unconsciously create distance. They become slower to respond, less expressive, or emotionally inconsistent. From the outside, these behaviors often appear confusing or even uncaring. Yet internally, they may be struggling with emotions they cannot fully explain. They may find themselves thinking constantly about the person they love while simultaneously convincing themselves that stepping back is the safest choice. This contradiction is difficult to understand because it defies ordinary logic. But the unconscious mind is not driven by logic alone. Its first priority is protection, even when that protection prevents the very happiness the heart desires. The tragedy is that many people mistake this withdrawal for a lack of feeling. They believe that if love were genuine, it would always move confidently toward greater closeness. Human psychology tells a different story. The deeper the emotional connection becomes, the more intensely unresolved fears can surface. A person who has never examined those fears may unknowingly sabotage the relationship, not because they want to lose it, but because remaining emotionally exposed feels unbearable. They are not only afraid of losing the other person, they are afraid of confronting the vulnerable parts of themselves that love has brought into the light. This realization changes the way we interpret emotional distance. It reminds us that silence is not always empty, and withdrawal is not always the absence of love. At the same time, it teaches an equally important lesson. Understanding someone's fear does not require sacrificing your own emotional well-being. Compassion allows us to recognize the hidden battles others may be fighting. But wisdom reminds us that lasting love can only grow when both people are willing to face those inner fears with honesty. Love may awaken hidden wounds, but only courage can transform those wounds into genuine emotional connection. Here's keynote number 3, expanded into 5 detailed paragraphs in the same deep psychological, introspective style. One of the most difficult battles a human being can experience is the conflict between the desire to love and the instinct to protect oneself. These two forces often exist within the same person at the same time, each pulling in a different direction. One part of the mind longs for closeness, understanding, and emotional safety with another person. It imagines a future built on trust, affection, and genuine connection. Yet another part remains alert, remembering every disappointment, every broken promise, and every moment when opening the heart led to pain. This hidden struggle creates an invisible tension that few people recognize from the outside. What appears to be hesitation is often an intense psychological conflict taking place beneath the surface. The conscious mind may sincerely believe it is making logical decisions, but unconscious emotional patterns often guide behavior far more than reason does. A person may tell themselves that they are too busy, that the timing is wrong, or that the relationship is moving too quickly. While these explanations may contain some truth, they often conceal a deeper reality. The closer someone gets to experiencing authentic intimacy, the louder old fears begin to speak. They fear losing their independence, being abandoned, becoming emotionally dependent, or repeating painful experiences from the past. Without realizing it, they begin to choose emotional distance because it feels more controllable than emotional vulnerability. This inner conflict is exhausting because neither side of the personality fully wins. Their heart continues thinking about the person they love, imagining conversations, shared moments, and the possibility of a meaningful future. At the very same time, fear quietly encourages them to remain silent, postpone important conversations, or avoid situations that require emotional honesty. They may repeatedly move closer, only to pull away again without understanding why. To the other person, these mixed signals seem confusing and even contradictory. Yet from within, they are simply expressions of an unresolved psychological battle between hope and self-protection. Unfortunately, many relationships suffer because this conflict remains invisible. The partner who is waiting often interprets withdrawal as rejection or a lack of commitment. They begin questioning their own worth, wondering whether they have done something wrong. In reality, the distance may have very little to do with them. It is frequently the result of unresolved fears that existed long before the relationship began. Emotional wounds do not disappear simply because love arrives. Instead, genuine love often shines a light on those wounds, forcing a person to confront feelings they have successfully avoided for years. Until they recognize this inner struggle, they may continue repeating the same pattern with every meaningful relationship they enter. The deeper lesson is that lasting love requires more than powerful emotions. It requires the courage to face oneself. Every meaningful relationship eventually reaches a point where self-protection must give way to trust if genuine intimacy is to grow. This does not mean ignoring healthy boundaries or pretending fear does not exist. Rather, it means recognizing that fear should inform our choices, not control them. The person who learns to acknowledge their inner conflict without allowing it to dictate every decision takes the first real step toward emotional freedom. Only then can love stop feeling like a threat and begin becoming the source of healing it was always capable of being. Here's keynote number 4, expanded into 5 detailed paragraphs in the same psychological, reflective style. When someone you deeply care about suddenly becomes distant, the first instinct is to see the separation as an ending. The silence feels like rejection. The absence feels like abandonment, and every unanswered question seems to point toward loss. Yet there is another possibility that the human mind rarely considers. Sometimes separation is not the opposite of connection, but the beginning of transformation. Distance creates a space where both individuals are forced to confront parts of themselves that remained hidden while the relationship was unfolding. What appears to be emptiness on the outside may actually be a period of profound inner change taking place beyond anyone's immediate awareness. During this period, the familiar distractions of constant communication and emotional reassurance disappear. Without those comforts, each person is left alone with their own thoughts, habits, fears, and emotional patterns. The one who stepped away may begin noticing how much of their withdrawal was driven by fear rather than truth. The one who remained may slowly realize how much of their happiness had become dependent on another person's presence. In this quiet space, uncomfortable questions begin to emerge. Why do I react this way? What am I truly afraid of losing? Who am I when no one is validating my emotions? These questions are rarely easy, but they are often the beginning of genuine psychological growth. Transformation is rarely comfortable because it asks us to release old identities. Many people unknowingly define themselves through relationships, believing they are complete only when someone else is emotionally available. Separation interrupts that belief. It challenges both people to rediscover their own sense of purpose, confidence, and emotional stability. Instead of constantly seeking answers from another person, they gradually begin searching within themselves. This inward journey may feel lonely, but it often reveals strengths that could never have developed while relying solely on external reassurance. Growth begins when emotional dependence slowly gives way to emotional maturity. Ironically, this period of distance often changes the relationship itself, whether the two people reunite or not. If they eventually come back together after genuine self-reflection, they may meet as different individuals than the ones who first connected. The relationship becomes less about filling emotional emptiness and more about sharing emotional wholeness. If they do not reunite, the transformation is still meaningful because both individuals carry greater self-awareness into every future relationship. In either outcome, the separation was not meaningless suffering, but an experience that reshaped how they understand love, attachment, and themselves. This is why every period of distance deserves to be viewed with patience rather than immediate judgment. Not every separation leads to reconciliation, and not every silence hides unspoken love. But every meaningful separation offers an opportunity for inner transformation if we are willing to accept its lessons. Instead of asking only "why did this happen to me?" a more powerful question begins to emerge. What is this experience trying to teach me about myself? That shift changes everything. The focus moves away from chasing answers in another person and toward discovering the wisdom that only solitude can reveal. In that quiet transformation, what once felt like loss may become the foundation for a stronger, wiser, and more authentic version of yourself. Here's keynote number 5, expanded into 5 detailed paragraphs in the same deep psychological, introspective style. When someone you love becomes distant, your first impulse is often to close the gap as quickly as possible. You replay old conversations, send another message, search for hidden meanings, and wonder if one more explanation will finally bring them back. This reaction is deeply human because uncertainty creates emotional discomfort. and the mind naturally seeks relief. Yet there is a quiet truth that many people overlook. The emotional energy you carry while waiting has a powerful influence, not because it magically controls another person, but because it shapes your own behavior, decisions, and the way others experience your presence. The energy of desperation and the energy of inner peace create completely different psychological environments. When waiting turns into constant chasing, something subtle begins to happen. Every unanswered message feels heavier than the last. Every delay becomes proof that something is wrong. The relationship slowly shifts from being a source of connection to becoming the center of your emotional world. Without realizing it, your attention moves away from your own growth and becomes completely focused on another person's actions. This intense pursuit can unintentionally create more pressure, especially if the other person is already struggling with fear, confusion, or emotional conflict. They may begin to associate the relationship with obligation rather than freedom, making distance feel even more appealing as a form of self-protection. The opposite approach is often misunderstood. Remaining calm does not mean pretending you no longer care. It does not mean playing games, acting cold, or trying to manipulate someone into returning. Genuine emotional stability is something entirely different. It is the quiet confidence that your value does not disappear simply because another person is uncertain. It is the willingness to continue building your own life, strengthening your character, and caring for your well-being without allowing someone else's silence to define your identity. This kind of self-respect creates a healthier emotional atmosphere because it replaces fear with balance and emotional dependence with inner strength. Interestingly, people often become more aware of what they truly feel when external pressure is removed. A person who has been overwhelmed by their own emotions may find it easier to reflect when they no longer feel pursued or forced to make immediate decisions. This does not guarantee that they will return or that the relationship will be restored. Human emotions are too complex for simple formulas. However, creating space allows truth to emerge more naturally than constant pursuit ever can. Whether they realize the depth of their feelings or continue walking a different path, your emotional stability ensures that your peace no longer depends entirely on their choice. The deepest lesson is that waiting should never become a pause in your own life. Love is most powerful when it grows alongside self-awareness rather than replacing it. Instead of asking how you can make someone choose you, ask how this experience can help you become wiser, stronger, and more emotionally grounded. Every moment spent developing your own character is an investment that benefits every future relationship, whether it involves this person or someone else. When your sense of worth comes from within, instead of from another person's attention, you stop living in fear of distance. You discover that true emotional strength is not found in chasing what has moved away, but in becoming the kind of person who remains whole, even while waiting for life's uncertainties to unfold.